We've got folks from the U.S. Forest Service. We know that we're going to have some. We start a little early, give you a little extra time, and that's okay. Good morning, Ben. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me here.
Ben Shearer. Is that how I say your last name?
Correct, Shearer, yes.
Okay, Ben, you're from the U.S. Forest Service, right?
Actually, I'm from the Pasco Fire Department, and I'm part of the incident management team that was called in to help manage the resources out here to fight the Cold Creek fire.
Excellent. All right. Well, tell us about the fire, the latest on it. What you know? I guess weather was nice to your firefighters over the weekend. It looks like, right?
Correct. Yeah.
But we've still got some homes that are threatened. So I'll let you give us the latest on the Cold Creek fire.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes. We have a little over 600 acres right now. With the weather that came in, it was managed to not put out the fire. It's not enough water to really put out the fire, but it did kind of contain the fire, the active fire going. So our firefighters were actually able to get in and do some what we call direct hands-on approach to the fire. So normally in big forest fires, it's too hot, too big, running through treetops. You can't get in there and do anything about that. So we're building containment lines, widening existing roads and trails, trying to create fire breaks around homes and those kind of things. With the weather that came in, it increased the relative humidity in the area, wet down all the pre-existing fuels that were there, the trees, the brushes, and all that. Allowed our firefighters to actually get in there and do some hands-on right at the fire line. So managing to increase containment on that every day. And we've managed to save some of the natural resources out there as well. Lots of trails out there.
Good, yeah.
Lots of recreationists. People love those areas and love to hike. We're very interested in trying to preserve as much of that as possible. So we were actually the Sand Creek area and the Indian River area, pushing the fire up and around all of that, trying to preserve those resources as much as possible.
You still got some homes that are threatened by this fire, right? Well, I guess cabins, homes, residences. Maybe a lot of people that live around there are listening right now, and you say that some of them are maybe even out of the area, maybe in another state or something, or what?
Yeah,
or another part of the state, maybe?
We've actually had lots of phone calls from all over the U.S., people that vacation here on a regular basis, and they're calling us wanting to know about the status of their cabins. Right now, we're still listing about 50 of them as in threatened danger. Really, that's due to, as long as we have fire on the ground, we consider things threatened.
Sure, yeah.
Everybody's been watching the news. We've seen communities in Washington State, Oregon, and other places in California being totally wiped out by wildfire. So if there's fire on the ground, we're going to consider anything close by threatened status. So we're going to keep those homes at that level 2 evacuation for now, and just letting those folks know that the fire is still quite a ways away. But like I said, again, anybody watching the news has seen how fast wildfire can spread. So as long as we have active fire going, we're going to consider that area at a level 2 evacuation. So that means get set to go if something does happen. Some of those cabin owners are calling in and saying, hey, can we get to our cabin and get some important stuff out, right? Those family heirlooms, those family pictures.
Yeah.
So that area is open. They can get into their homes. They can get in there and do some stuff. We do ask if they're going to be in that area to, be aware. There are fire engines around. There's firefighters around. We have helicopters doing water drops. So be aware of what's going on around you, and making sure that if the threat does increase, to pay attention so we can get everybody out safely.
Now, Ben, we're expecting a phone call from Jerry Ford. Tell us, he's out on the fire line, I take it, right?
He's actually one of the local foresters, yeah, and so he's one of the managers here. It's his unit, so we're working for him, to mitigate this fire with them. So we've all worked closely together. It's a big partnership we all have together to make sure we produce well for the community here, keep the forest as safe as possible, and protect those natural resources that are out there.
What's the technique you guys use to determine the size of the fire? Is it an aerial photo that you then can calculate, or how does that work?
So a little bit of everything. If anybody's been really paying attention, they'll notice that we actually dropped our acreage by a few acres yesterday. We were like at 650, and then we dropped at like 616. So really what happens is when firefighters are out there initially, they're calling in, hey, I'm at the Indian River cutoff or whatever, right? And so we've got somebody sitting at a computer and a map and putting points on a map. So it's pretty roughly estimated when we first start out. As the fire starts to recede a little bit, as those firefighters have a little more time, most of those wildland firefighters have GPS capabilities on their phone, and so they're calling in GPS coordinates, and then we're able to map that way. And again, as time allows, as the fire kind of slows down a little bit, we do have infrared capability flights that will fly over at different times and give us a heat signature of the map. And so we'll try and coordinate that way as well.
It's always interesting. I think most people would think about maybe their own property, and it's like a half an acre or whatever. And what does 650 acres look like? But a section of land is a mile by a mile square, and that's 640 acres. So if you spread this thing out over the course of a square, you'd have almost a mile by a mile. I'm sure they don't line up and burn that way for you.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, I'm sure they take off wherever it goes. So it's kind of a combined totality of this strip that way and that strip that way. But still, that seems like that's a manageable style fire versus the tens of thousands of acres we hear of other places. But any fire is bad fire, right?
Well, and every fire has different complexities, and that was the thing with this fire. It's not, comparative to some of the fires happening in our region, it's not super huge, but it's been one of the most complex fires to fight. As you travel through Highway 12 out there, heading out of Rimrock there, the hillsides are very steep, lots of rock faces, cliff faces.
Sure.
This isn't your typical, when we get out in even North Yakima here, we get farmers out with their plows and discs and run around the edge of a fire. That's not going to happen out here. This isn't land you get to do that. So we have a lot of specialty firefighters, hand crews that come out. They're used to working in the mountain regions. They're actually what we call spike camp, so they actually camp out away from everybody else, and they're up there for days at a time working with those trees and the brushes and the shrubs, evaluating those conditions. And the report they've been sending back is this fire is not in an area that's easy to fight. The eastern side of that fire down around those cabins, we've got lots of roads and trails. We can get firefighters in, get some engines in, and do some protection that way. The northwest corner of this fire is up in the wilderness area. It's not an area where we can get people in. So a lot of hand crews up there trying to do the work and relying on aviation, which of course the weather would not let us fly aviation for the first several days of this fire. So we had a hard time getting in there and getting good coordinates for that fire where it was actually burning. The hand crews that were up there were radioing out every day, the rock faces, areas that we just couldn't do anything with. Like I said, this isn't a nice square mile fire.
A couple of weeks ago, the fire burned over the top of this ridge here, and we saw it spreading to the east in some homes, and with it being mostly brush, cheatgrass, and whatever, you can see how a bulldozer going through and scraping that could put the brakes on it pretty good. In fact, one of the lines is almost a straight line.
Yeah.
How is it in the forest itself? I mean, are you dropping trees so they fall towards where the fire is, and so they can burn up to where the stump is, and it stops there? Or how the heck can you get in there and scrape enough away to stop a fire?
So we use 20-person hand crews a lot, and that's actually their job to scrape down to mineral earth wherever they can. When you have when you have trees involved, that's a different story. And those guys are highly trained, highly worked to do. It depends on where they're at, what they're doing. So
sure, but I would think that if you're in standing tree, it can jump across any line you've scraped below just by going treetop to treetop.
And with the wind and weather we were having the first couple of days of this fire, that's what was happening a lot. We had hand crews trying to get in there and dig line, and the treetop fire was just going from treetop to treetop. The winds were blowing embers, from ridge to ridge.
Sure.
So it was very hard to contain that fire. A lot of people were questioning the level 2 evacuations all the way around Rimrock Lake, but with the heavy fire activity that was happening there in the beginning, we just didn't really know where this fire was going to go. So
better safe than sorry, right? I mean,
safe
that's
than sorry
got to
to
be
get
the
those
motto
people
when you're dealing with something that unpredictable.
Those hand crews, there's forestry crews get in there. They know which way to follow the trees to either help the fire or prevent the fire, and that's their job. They're the ones that get up there and do that kind of stuff. So.
Have we thought about a beaver division where we would just turn a bunch of those guys loose and let them try to chomp down the no? Well, we had the Commissioner of Public Lands on our show. Lance,
we did. Hillary Franz,
3 weeks ago or so.
Yeah.
She was lamenting the lack of attention that we've been able to give our forests, and our forests are not. She said a properly managed forest is more or less kind of fireproofs itself in terms of the way the underbrush is and all of that. And she says, we're behind in that in Washington's forests. And I thought it was kind of spot on of her to be able to make that criticism when, at a time when that's probably not the environmentalists' way to go. But and we're hearing that fire hasn't been into some of these areas in 100 years. I imagine it's just a real
Tinder
gourmet
box. Jeez, yeah.
setting for a flame or two. Huh?
Boy.
So you've got several things happening here. Our state's been under drought conditions all summer long, since way early spring, and to add to that, some of the places around have not had rain for the last 14 days or more, which just increases that drought problem in the woods. So even the regular brush and grasses up there are drying out pretty good. So our fuel models up there are just way off the charts as far as thermal capability, and what they're capable of producing in a fire, which increases the rate of fire spread.
Sure.
It takes just a little breeze in very dried out conditions to create big fire. And that's where we're at right now with a lot of our forests in Washington State and most of the Northwest. So that's when you're seeing these big fires, and that's really a lot what's happening. As far as the management, I won't go into the political aspect. I know there's always both sides of that game. But the reality is that, before we decided to manage the forests, nature did a lot of things,
Yeah.
right? So we'd have lightning-caused fires or things like that. While nowadays more than 80% of our fires are human-caused, which is a sad thing. Even the natural ones for so many years, we just have to get in there and put those things out, has been the attitude. And the issue nowadays is we have so many people building homes into those environments, and they want their homes protected and saved. And I agree with that. We need to protect those people, need to protect their homes. But a lot of that comes down to making sure the forest is maintained naturally. So what you're seeing nowadays is a lot more in those natural cause fires. Go ahead and let those things burn as long as we're protecting people, protecting property, and there is ways to do that. But for so long we've had the attitude that fire is always bad, and now we're understanding better science, better
Sure.
Following history. That a lot of times that fire is a good thing to get in there, burn up the dead trees. I know one of the things we were looking out here at Okanagan Wenatchee was they have a lot of bug areas. In years past or in history, that would have been burned out because of a lightning strike or something. And nowadays we try to get in there and put those out as fast as we can.
Cook out the
So
bugs.
Forestry Service is
Yeah.
learning. This Department of Natural Resources, the rest of the world is also learning that sometimes it's okay to let the fires burn some of that out a little bit.
Yeah.
And that is one of the things we actually use as a technique now. Because there's so much underbrush, a lot of the fire right now along Highway 12 that's on the east end or the west end of Rimrock Lake, whichever way you want to look at it. And some of that is fire we actually put on the ground in order to get those fuels consumed up ahead of the big fire, and it makes it much easier for us then when those treetop fires are coming through, or if the wind picks up and we have a heavier flame front, it makes it much easier for those crews to get in there and do their
Sure.
work. And if we do it that way, it's actually a better fire than the big fires that have so much heat. When we do fire, it's not a lot of heat. It's just consuming the easy fuels, and the ground comes back. Those plants come back right away. When you have these big forest fires that come through, they come through with so much heat. I've been all over the state this summer and seen a lot of these fires, and the heat that comes out of these, it literally burns the ground, and there's nothing left.
Wow.
So root systems
Takes the
everything
nutrients out. It burns off that
is
stuff,
gone.
right? Yeah.
I mean, it takes much longer for those forests to come back.
We're talking with Ben Shearer. He's a Pasco fireman, but he is here as part of the special team dealing with the fire just up the road from us and helping to coordinate all of that stuff. Lance, I know that the air quality around here was, at the end of the scale bad, and now a couple days later we can have a beautiful day. Have you been up here the whole time, or have you been bouncing between Pasco? Because they had some pretty bad smoke down there too, didn't they?
Boy, worse.
Yeah, I've been here since Tuesday night, Tuesday afternoon. We were called in Tuesday morning, team assembled, got here as quickly as we could to assist the Forest Service with the initial action that they were doing. And drove up through the smoke. Pretty pleased. We've actually been up at the White Pass Ski Lodge, is where our command post is located. And at the top of the mountain, the smoke has not been quite as bad as down here in the rest of the valley. I was sending pictures to my wife back in Tri-Cities, and she was cussing me out because
You get some
he was
fresh
driving
air and she
slow.
doesn't,
Yeah,
right?
up here in the clear area.
Hey, if you've got a question, 972-5481, and that's for Jerry as well. Maybe Jerry, if you're out there, that's the number, 972-5481. We'd love to hear from you. We'd also put this up on our Facebook page, Ben, and we've got a number of questions here, and a lot of them seem to be around the cause. This is, I've been following the news regarding this fire. So far, no information released regarding the suspected cause. Any progress as to the origin? Lightning, man-caused, intentional, accidental? Where are we on that, on the cause?
So I don't have any information on the cause. Our team is brought in to deal with the fire and deal with the resources here at the fire. The fire still belongs to the U.S. Forest Service. I know they are working closely with the Yakima Sheriff's Department to work on the cause of the fire, and that will be left up to them to determine that cause and release the nature of that cause when and if they choose to do so.
Not in your ballywhack, then. In other
Not in
words.
my ballywhack.
Okay,
No,
I got it.
They leave us out of it.
I got it.
Would
I
a
got it.
guy desperate to ski, climbing the mountains at night, looking for a spot of snow, could he possibly have caused it inadvertently?
But the sheriff's office did not. The sheriff's office did have a crash in the area where it started. I don't know if you knew about that or not. But then when and then went up there and rescued the guy on the day that the fire started. So I don't know. Maybe he was trying to find him. Maybe he was lighting up the brush to be able to, so people could find him or something. But regardless.
No official word yet.
No official word that I've heard at this time.
Yeah. No lightning up there though. At that, I mean, right? We didn't
Not at
have
that time.
Yeah,
no.
we really didn't have it. 99% of our fires are human caused in this.
Around 82%.
82%, really?
Nationwide, around 82% of our fires are human caused. Now that doesn't mean that they are arson. That's a big thing going on right now.
Yeah.
Just because they're human caused does not mean they were intentionally set or intentionally trying to cause damage. So
could have been a fire out
could
of
have
control.
been,
Anything. Yeah.
A car dragging chains. We have a lot of that in our areas around here. Cars parking in surfaces where they shouldn't park. Making sure. So wanting to remind people of that. So again, back to the weather we've had here for this summer. And the fact that we are in a drought, you're parking your car in a bad place or dragging those chains when you don't hook your boat up right. We do have a lot of those around, and they can cause some pretty big, serious fires as well. Yeah. So,
are we, pardon the pun, but are we out of the woods on this fire? I mean, could this thing like double in a day or something? I mean, when you're looking at the forecast, you're looking ahead. I mean, you got people worried now. So
like I said in the beginning, anytime we have fire on the ground, we consider an unsafe thing happening. So that's why those level 2 evacuations are still in place, and want people to be a heads up. We're almost a week into this thing now. It's going to be easy to get kind of relaxed about everything.
Right.
Have not seen a lot of active fire, a lot of smoke. So it's easy for people to go, oh, it's all okay.
Right.
If we have fire on the ground, anything can happen at any time. So all it takes is the wrong wind conditions to pop up. We're looking at yesterday, today, a little warmer, a little drier. So that fire is going to try and come back on us a little bit. Crews are working heavily. We are making good progress. We're up to 35% containment, which is great. And crews I just left the briefing this morning on my way here, and we've got some really good plans in place. We've got good roads opened up. So those crews are getting in there and making a difference right now. So we'll expect that containment to go up every day, each day, until we can turn it back over to local control. But the good news is we do have more wet weather coming in here.
Yeah.
So we're kind of actually hoping for a little bit of dry spell here, for just a little bit, so we can see where those hot spots are and start working them before the big winds come back in. That's always the problem for us, is when those winds kick in, it dries out the fuels and it pushes the fire, and you never really know where that's going to go. So you're paying attention to those weather conditions, and paying attention to the terrain. We have special firefighters out here. Work with meteorologists and fire behaviorists and try and predict where our problem areas are going to be, and try and mitigate those areas before the fire gets there. So we've had really good success with that so far. It's been doing what it was supposed to do.
Tough to get the fire jumpers in there though when you have all these snags and down trees and stuff. Is that tough?
Yeah, actually, the crews that tend to do a lot of that, they actually hiked up into the wilderness area. They didn't want to be dropped off. So they actually hiked up into the wilderness area, and that was what they were saying is it's too dangerous to fight up in that wilderness area right now. It's well over 100-year-old forest areas that hasn't been mitigated, hasn't had any fire on it. It's great to go up there and recreate in. It's a beautiful place.
Yeah.
But when you're trying to work with fire conditions, it's way too
Oh,
dangerous.
can't even imagine.
So they get to play with all of that and do that stuff up there. So.
You know, there was a whole bunch of us that were hoping that you created some new ski areas, ski runs in the woods there. But again, we don't want it to be that close. But anyway, you go ahead, Dave.
I just have 2 questions from the common man. One, do you hire firefighters one leg longer than the other so they can walk up the side hill? Is that a prerequisite? And the second question from the common man is, when you go to light up briquettes to cook for the barbecue, halfway through, do you have a urge to put them out before you can actually get the burgers on there?
Actually, most firefighters love to barbecue their food. I don't know. I think we just spend so much time out on the fire line that
it's a natural.
And
Gotcha.
it just becomes a natural thing.
Ben, we appreciate your information, man. We really do. We got a call?
We got a call. We got Dan on the phone with us
All right.
this morning. Yeah. Good morning, Dan. What's on your mind?
Hey, good morning, guys. Just a comment. I hear different people saying we should just let nature run its course and burn it out. When the forestry was up there and they were harvesting trees, they made a concerted effort to have fire watch and clean the brush up and all of that. And I know that I just heard that nature should, burning is not all that bad and everything. But if we took that same tack on viral infections and so forth, then it would run the course of logic that we should just let people die from viruses because that's natural. But we don't. We try to get vaccines. We try to manage the destruction of the virus can cause. And in that logic, then you would go up there and you would try to do good forest husbandry so that the forest wouldn't burn. And it just frustrates me that people say, well, just let it burn. It's nature. And it just frustrates me because when I was a kid, we didn't have the forest fires that we do now because there were loggers up there watching the forest.
Yep, I hear you. I'm going to let Ben pick up an answer for you, but I would just start off by saying I didn't get from his comment that all fires are okay to just let burn. It's under particular circumstances. Ben, go ahead.
Yeah, and that's the thing I'd really want to push out there is even the fires that they do let burn, they do it in a controlled manner. We don't let them just run wild. You keep them knocked down with water drops or whatever, and making sure that they're done in a controlled manner. Like I just talked about a little bit earlier, when these big fires happen, they burn way hotter than what most people think. And so when they're using fire to control control the habitat or the old growth in there, to clean that up, they want to keep them in a controlled environment and not just run over hot, because we don't want them to kill off the forest. We want them to clean out the old dead growth. We want them to clean out the underbrush, which then allows trees to grow healthier. Healthy trees actually can stop fire on their own if they're healthy and have had the right amount of moisture. So it's not just letting things run rampant on their own. Even the ones that are allowed to burn, they're done in a controlled environment so that it's done safely.
We'll put Dan down as advocating for more involvement in forest management. That we heard the same kind of thing that we heard from
Hillary,
our Commissioner of Public Lands.
Yes, Hillary Franz.
Dave, we got time for you. Good morning.
Yeah, I just had a question. I know you can't predict it exactly, but do you have an estimate for containment, a date?
An estimated date for containment, possibly? Thoughts, Ben?
So I want to just really emphasize, when we talk about containment of the fire, what we're saying is that we've got a pretty good idea that the fire is not going to get any bigger. So containment, we're really hoping by the end of the week is what we're kind of looking at. But it will just kind of depend on the weather and where that fire kind of wants to go if it hits up in that wilderness area. Right now, our projected path is by the end of the week. Our incident management team will be turning this over to a local control. It'll be a much more manageable size, much less resources needed. They will probably be watching this fire through the winter because there's a lot of those places up there where you get root systems underground and they tend to smolder through the winter.
Sure.
So as far as actual containment, as far as saying, hey, we can lift the evacuation notices, probably looking towards the end of the week sometime. Actual extinguishment, I think they're not forecasting until sometime the end of October.
Yeah, but that's a good point. You can have a ring around the fire to keep it from spreading, but that doesn't mean the stuff that's already inside that ring isn't hot and cooking for an extended period of time. Right?
Yeah, we want to make sure even the stuff that's in the middle is in a controlled environment that local resources can manage it, make sure that it doesn't spread. We
Sure.
have windstorms up here. We don't want a big windstorm to kick some big embers off, and then have to come back and do it all over again.
But I know that a lot of people are listening, that we're looking forward to this. I want you to make sure that you're getting all the information. Did we cover the information that you wanted to tell everyone?
So the only thing I'd also talk about is we have a lot of people wanting to know about Highway 12.
Yeah,
I don't have any good data on that just yet.
But
we are evaluating it with the Department of Transportation.
Is it closed? I mean, from like Oak Creek, or I mean, just a top portion, right?
Yeah, the only part that's actually totally closed is right at the top part. A couple mile stretch, so Tieton Road on the west end, on the east end, over to almost the top, just short of the top, on the east end or on the west end of the fire. So if you're coming from the west, you can get up to the top to the lodge area, the recreation trails, the Dog Lake, all that up in there. If you're coming from the east end all the way up to Tieton Road, so the cabin areas, Clear Lake, that's all open for recreation. We want people to understand that. There is some road closures there, but they're informational, wanting to make sure people understand the evacuation levels, making sure they know to be contacted if they do get in there and need information. But yeah, right at the top from Tieton Road, almost to the lodge, is the actual closed areas. We've had a lot of avalanches. We've had some big boulders. In fact, just yesterday, we had a big boulder come from almost the top. They actually heard it, watched it come down. It took out a big section of the guardrail.
Wow.
Yeah, it was.
Are you going to take care of that stuff when I'm driving up there in the winter, right? I mean, you got.
It's all about you, Tormy. It's all about you.
You got crew. I mean, but you do have crews that take care of all that stuff.
Well, that'll
right?
be up to
Not
the
you,
department.
but
That'll be up to the Department of
Right.
Transportation,
Right.
keeping an eye on that, just like they always do. But it's going to be a problem. All
Yeah.
those root systems are now burned out up there. You guys are used to rocks coming down there in that section on a regular basis.
Yeah.
They're just going to have to continually monitor that, watch it.
Yep.
And that's been one of the problems. We actually lost a pretty big tree up there yesterday. We knew it was coming down, watched the road for a while. And then as soon as it was safe to do so, we had a crew go up there and fall that tree. But it actually took up the whole roadside for a while.
Jeez.
So they got up there, chopped it up and cleared it out. So that way when DOT does decide that it's safe to open the road, it's safe for those travelers to go through.
Reevaluation happening this afternoon.
They're
possibly.
having a big meeting right now. I was hoping to have a couple extra people here in the studio this morning, but our IC and the local forest crews are out there right now with DOT doing that evaluation, trying to get that opened as soon as possible.
Good.
Ben, let me just say that we've had an awful lot of people come through here, talk about their topics and their subjects. I don't know that we've had anybody come in that seemed as totally in control and knowledgeable as you. It's a real pleasure to have had you in here and heard such a comprehensive. You don't even need to take a breath, man. You just know your stuff, and we really appreciate that. I know our listeners do too.
Well, thank you guys for having us. One of the things incident management teams do on a regular basis, especially in this type of an area, is have community meetings. And of course, those aren't really happening right now. And up in that community, there wasn't a really good place to try and hold a big community meeting. So the next thing we would do, of course, would be try and do some sort of Zoom meeting or Facebook Live meeting. But again, not a lot of technology up there. A lot of hardly any phone service, much less enough to support a web. So I appreciate Kit Radio letting us to come in here and talk to the community.
You bet.
And be able to reach our message out there in as big of an area as we can. Let everybody know that we're here doing the best we can. And we will get those areas opened as fast as we can, as long as it's safe for the public and us.
Well said. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time and your information. Make it a great and quick containment, and away we go to back to our other new normal.
And just one other thing, I want to thank the community for their support. It's been amazing. Everywhere we go, people are appreciative of the efforts, and we appreciate that too. But I do want to say we're doing it. One question we're getting a lot is people can we do anything for us, and they want to come donate stuff. Firefighters are well taken care of. It's our team's job to make sure that they are well fed. We have shower trailers, we have food trailers. Everybody really is taken care of. But we still have that. I want to do something. I want to do something for the team. I want to do something for the firefighters. So the best thing you can really do for the firefighters is take care of your own community. There are donation sources here in town: Red Cross, United Way, different church groups open up. If you're wanting to reach out bigger areas, there have been several communities in our state this year that have been burned out. and they have groups, the Revive Malden group, things like that. So reaching out to those communities, a lot of these firefighters have been going from those communities straight to here.
Right on.
And so they would love it if you would reach out to them and help them.
Well
Excellent.
said. Thanks, Ben.
Ben Shearer, thank you, sir. Appreciate it.